I think you forgot how much your specific person actually loves you. And in this video, I'm gonna help you remember. Because in our reality, sometimes we fall into what I would refer to as a misperception. So anytime you think your reality is working against you, or things aren't working out in your favor, or your specific person isn't thinking about you, or doesn't want to be with you, these would be negative thoughts, but I would turn them again as misperceptions. And so basically meaning that they're not actually true, but I'll explain exactly why they are not true, and they never will be true, and they never have been true. Because your sense of reality is that you are a creator, right? Everything around you and outside of you is a creation of your thoughts, your beliefs, your assumptions, basically your state of being. And so whenever we have this thought of something negative happening in our reality, we usually see it outside of ourselves, right? We think that we are perceiving it, and thus we create that to be our reality. But just a moment, I want you to think about your God state or your higher self, and think about how your power and your creation and your reality is actually all coming from that God state. And so when you see something outside of you, again, I'm going to term it and tell you that it's a misperception, but it's based on this idea. Your God state is created and made of love, abundance, and positivity. So then, how could you actually create anything negative outside of it or from that? It would actually be like you're cooking in the kitchen and you're trying to make lasagna out of turkey. It's not going to happen, but we still convince ourselves that something negative is happening outside of us because you believe in what you create. So when you create fear, you believe in it, even though it is a misperception. And in the past on this channel, I've talked about positivity in our reality in the exact ways that you would view light, right? Light exists, darkness does not exist. The illusion of darkness exists anytime there is no light, but in essence, darkness is not a true thing. It's just a product of a lack of light. And so negativity is that same exact way. And so right now, whenever you are perceiving or misperceiving something in your reality, you're basically forgetting how much your specific person actually likes you and how much they actually want to be with you. But because you are a creator and you believe in what you create, you think of this as being your reality. But the whole reason as to why I'm even mentioning this is because we want to create, or we want to stop ourselves from creating the cycle in our reality that reinitiates or reconstructs this, or basically keeps these negative thoughts alive. And it's all a cycle in a way that produces a spiral if taken negatively, but I'll explain it. So first and foremost, we have a misperception. So think of it as there's only two parts of this cycle. So it's going to be easy to remember. But remember, we have a misperception on this side of the circle. And so a misperception, again, is seeing anything negative in your reality. And I mean literally anything negative. If you are perceiving something negative, if you are claiming someone has a negative characteristic, this is a misperception. It can't possibly be true. Even think about other people and exclaiming that there is a negative characteristic about your specific person. In that way, how would God see that individual? They would not blame them or state these negative characteristics, because everyone, you would say, is a child of God, thus has the same exact power. So it's impossible. And so we first have a misperception. So we're viewing our reality in a way that's negative, that isn't in alignment with what is true. But because you believe in what you create, you thus go to the other end of the cycle, kind of in an endless circle, and you start to create proof of that. Because you believe in what you create, you are going to find proof of that in your reality, because again, your fear, your worries, your anxieties start to initially, because in the same way of darkness, have the illusion that they are being created. But then also, what do we do as a result of that? Not only do we see proof, but we start to act differently. We try to do different things. We act differently towards our specific person. We perceive, we act, we think, we behave literally differently in relation to that misperception. But because of that, it creates a cycle that reproduces this initial misperception. And we go, yes, of course, I've seen proof. I acted in a certain way. And thus it reiterates and recreates this misperception, because your mind thinks, well, I wouldn't have acted in this way if it weren't true. And so that just reinforces the behavior. And then you continue in a cycle forever. But you can see that's where the term, the spiral, comes from, right? Because you're going in this circle of this misperception over and over again. And it basically brings you down. And thus you get so deep into this hole that it's impossible to see out of. But if you can break this cycle, you can manifest anything that you want because it's never ever true in the first place. It's again a misperception. And the way in which you want to break it is towards the act of proof or behavior. If you can tell yourself that anything in your reality that you're perceiving as negative is just a misperception, you will immediately break the cycle. That's actually something I exclaim within my mind every time I think of my reality as being negative or I perceive something negative. I just state to myself, this must be a misperception because there is no such thing as negativity in our reality. It's literally impossible. And so also this will kind of disconnect or stop this logical thought process of, oh, I acted in this way, so it must be true. So think of your specific person or not hearing from your specific person and we're perceiving they don't want to be with us. That is a misperception. And so what do we do in response? Thus we worry. We create anxieties, we stress, we might text our specific person more or do things to try to get them to text us more. Thus is a behavior that reinforces the idea that this is actually true and our specific person doesn't want to text us because our logical mind thinks, well, why wouldn't be doing this if it were not true? So then it must be true. But the same thing happens in the opposite. If you create or break that cycle and you go, no, this is a misperception, your mind will then work in your benefit. It will say, well, I'm not reacting to this. I'm not worrying. I'm not acting in a desperate state. So it must not actually be true. And I must be misperceiving it somehow. And just stating in your mind, this is a misperception is one of the greatest ways to make this occur. And when I tell you that this can have profound and amazing and positive effects, basically instantaneously, I'm going to give you an example from a success story of a individual I was working with recently, and it's literally perfect. So I would state, after we talked about this idea, this individual is very good at breaking the cycle. And you can be too, just by stating to yourself, this is a misperception. And so in the same ways of every single success story, this person had just as many circumstances. They were on and off with their specific person. They've been in no contact, regions of no contact, basically everything that you could imagine in every circumstance that you could ever think of as being in your way, created or was created at some point or misperceived by this individual based on their situation. But in just a understanding of thinking about this cycle and breaking it and stating to themselves, this is a misperception, the last thing that they actually told me on our coaching call was that their specific person said to them, I'm addicted to you. So just take a moment and think about the idea that you are this close to having your specific person tell you they are addicted to you. Just take a moment, let that wash over you and think about what that means for your specific person to literally be addicted to you. What would they have to say? What would they have to feel? What would they have to think? What would they have to assume to literally say that to you? And that's the same reality you can create just by altering or breaking this cycle where we misperceive something and thus react and act as if it's true, thus reinforcing the negative behavior, but it never was real in the first place. It was always a misperception, but like I mentioned earlier, you believe in what you create, and so you literally are going to reinforce this and believe it and feel it to be real until we can break this cycle. But as soon as you break it, you'll see your reality for what it truly is, just like the individual in this success story created. As soon as they literally broke out of that cycle, broke out of that misperception, they immediately saw the results they wanted, and they're doing absolutely fantastic. And it's funny as well, because everyone kind of in any success story or any manifestation always kind of thinks they could do better. So remember, you are going to be the same exact way. You're going to start manifesting and creating your specific person at some point, guaranteed is going to tell you, I'm addicted to you or something like that. They're going to tell you how much they care about you, how much they love you, because right now you're just forgetting the fact that they are obsessed with you. But of course, as always, we'll probably think of or act that we of course want more, because of course you want to be married or in a relationship with your specific person, which is okay. But right now, I guarantee you're forgetting how successful you are. You're forgetting how much your reality is actually working out for you. And that's the only thing that's presumably in our way. So just take a moment and think about that. Are we kind of finding ourselves stuck in this cycle where we are acting or reacting to a misperception that is never actually true? And again, I tell you, there is never a time in your reality where you perceive something negative and it was true. Never, ever. This has never occurred. This never will occur. This has never happened for anyone and will not happen for you. Even though we believe in what we create, and if we create fear, then we believe in it, it doesn't make it true. And you actually have a limit, which I want to make another video on this, but you actually have a limit to what you can actually miscreate. And I would totally agree. I think there's states, it's like impossible to fail your manifestation because your subconscious is creating your assumptions. Your subconscious knows what you want. And thus, why would your subconscious ever work against you in such a way that destroys, quote unquote, your manifestation? That'd be physically impossible. So I would say your subconscious is always working out for you, even if you perceive something negative. But there's a limit. You literally couldn't fail your manifestation if you tried. It would be literally impossible for you to do so. But I think that's a kind of a topic for another video because I want to make a full video on that. But as always, if you did have any questions on this, make sure to comment them down below. Remember, you can also reach out to me on my website if you want to send me a personal question, a personal success, a personal email, anything like that at kyleaugustcoaching.com. As always, thank you so much for stopping by today. And for all my members, I do have a write up of this concept that I'm posting in the members section. So make sure to check it out because I know sometimes it's I think everyone's been commenting this, but I think it's way easier to understand a topic if it's written out. So if any of this seems confusing or you want to act this out to the best of your ability, you want your specific person to tell you that they're addicted to you, I would definitely check it out. But thank you so much for stopping by today. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video, and I'll see you in my next video tomorrow.